Welcome to Daily Review, your daily dose of literary exploration. We dive into books that spark curiosity and ignite growth. While our passion often leads us to nonfiction reads that empower and improve your life, no book is off limits. From gripping thrillers to insightful memoirs and compelling fiction to historical accounts, we're here to share and discuss all the interesting reads we discover. Tune in for your next great book idea. Thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Review. We truly appreciate you joining us for your daily dose of literary exploration. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to share these amazing books with you. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a book that, well, for many of you listening, might have been a really foundational text, a kind of financial red pill maybe. It definitely shifted perspectives on money, education, and success for a lot of folks. It's a book that pretty openly challenges the very fabric of conventional wisdom we've all sort of inherited about how to build wealth and secure financial futures. We're talking, of course, about Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki and Sharon L. Lechter.
Indeed. And it's fascinating, this deep dive, because it really is an exploration of perspectives that, honestly, even decades after it first came out, feels incredibly relevant, still sparks debate. The authors present this really stark contrast, don't they, between two very different philosophies of life and money. And what's truly compelling, I think, is how they illustrate that the world has fundamentally changed, yet so much of the financial advice we still give out, it just hasn't caught up.
Right.
So we'll be looking at how traditional education prepares us, or perhaps more accurately doesn't prepare us, for the real financial world, and, what different choices can ultimately lead to in terms of maybe lifelong prosperity and freedom. The premise, the outdated script for success.
Okay, let's unpack this core idea first. It's almost provocative, isn't it? This suggestion that the traditional path to success might actually be, well, fundamentally flawed or at the very least kind of woefully outdated now. The book kicks off by really laying bare this advice that, so many of us grew up hearing, often from really well-meaning parents and teachers. Study hard, get good grades, go to college, and you'll find a high-paying job with great benefits. That was the script.
The standard script. Yeah.
It paints this vivid picture of seemingly successful careers, the kind of professional paths that were once considered the absolute pinnacle of achievement. And the co-author, Sharon Lechter, she provides this perfect real-world example. Graduated with honors accounting, Florida State University back in '76, immediately snapped up by a Big 8 accounting firm.
Which, for context, the Big 8, those were the absolute titans back then. Getting a job there meant you basically made it. Elite stuff.
Exactly. Prestigious career path guaranteed, or so it seemed. Her husband, Michael, followed a similar trajectory. Honors grad, engineer, then law school. Recruited by a top D.C. law firm, patent law, another highly respected, financially rewarding field.
Right. So by all accounts, they did everything right. They meticulously followed what the book calls the master plan for success.
Promising futures, clear career paths, and that traditional expectation, of comfortable retirement, probably with a nice fat pension waiting.
It's a dream.
But here's where Kiyosaki starts to pick it apart, and where it gets really interesting. Despite their undeniable success, the fancy degrees, following this master plan to a T, they hit this realization. There was a huge, often unspoken gap.
Okay.
Their retirement funds, they weren't growing through those traditional guaranteed pension plans anymore. Instead, their wealth accumulation was solely dependent on their own individual contributions. Things like 401ks.
Ah, the shift, right.
Yeah.
From employer guaranteed to individual responsibility. That's huge.
Exactly. And this shift highlights this profound systemic change that the old go to school, get a job advice just hadn't really factored in. The world had changed, but the script, the advice, hadn't been updated.
Yeah, and that disconnect, that feeling of, wait, this isn't quite adding up the way I thought it would.
Yeah.
That's precisely what the book argues leads to this deep disillusionment, especially, among younger generations. There's that powerful anecdote about Sharon Lechter's son back in 1996. He was apparently really frustrated with school, protesting, I'm bored, I'm tired of studying stuff I'll never use in real life. Classic kid complaint, right?
Oh, yeah. Heard that one before.
But when his mom gave him that standard line, well, if you don't get good grades, you won't get into college, his reply was, well, it was pretty insightful for a kid who hadn't even met Kiyosaki yet.
What did he say?
He basically said, quite confidently apparently, regardless of whether I go to college, I'm going to be rich.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Bold.
Bold, yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't just leave it there. He challenged the whole premise that good grades and college automatically equal financial success. He pointed to people like Michael Jordan, Madonna, even Bill Gates, who famously dropped out at Harvard, right?
Richest man in America pretty quickly.
Exactly. And he even mentioned, kind of cheekily, a baseball pitcher making over $4 million a year who was, let's just say, not known for his academic prowess. His point was clear. The traditional path isn't the only path, maybe not even the best path, to getting rich.
So it directly confronts that assumption.
Yeah.
That school smarts automatically translate to money smarts.
Absolutely. And it introduces that unsettling idea that maybe just working harder within the traditional system, like his parents were doing, might just mean paying more taxes, getting into more debt, and still having no real job security in this, increasingly volatile economy.
Yeah.
The book really hammers home the absence of financial education in schools as this critical problem. It points out kids get credit cards before they even leave high school sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
But they never get a single course on how money actually works, how to manage it, how to invest it. It's a huge gap.
It really is.
So let me just ask you, the listener, think about your own journey for a second. Have you ever felt that disconnect, that gap between the academic stuff you learned and the, frankly, often brutal realities of managing money as an adult? Did your education really prepare you for today's financial world?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's the question this book really forces you to confront right from the start. Sets the stage for a totally different way of thinking. Two fathers, two worlds, contrasting perspectives on money. Okay, so this is where the core narrative really kicks in. The part that gives Rich Dad, Poor Dad its unforgettable title. Robert Kiyosaki introduces his two fathers. There's his biological dad, the poor dad, and then his best friend Mike's father, who becomes his rich dad.
Right, and this contrast isn't just a storytelling device. It's really the philosophical foundation for his whole argument about financial literacy, isn't it?
Absolutely. His poor dad was, by all conventional standards, brilliant, highly educated, PhD, multiple advanced degrees, all on full scholarships. A respected, high-earning government employee.
Top of his field academically.
Exactly. Then you have Rich Dad. Never even finished the 8th grade. A businessman, entrepreneur, definitely a risk taker.
Very different path.
Totally different. And both men, despite these huge differences in education and jobs, they both worked incredibly hard, earned substantial incomes, apparently. But their financial outcomes couldn't be more different.
How so?
Well, poor Dad struggled financially his whole life, left behind debts and bills when he died. Rich Dad, the 8th grade dropout, became one of the richest men in Hawaii, left millions to his family, charities, the church.
Wow, that's a stark difference.
It really is. And that dichotomy is so powerful because it immediately makes you, the listener, question your own preconceived ideas. You have to consider which path actually makes more sense rather than just blindly accepting, the standard view.
Yeah, it forces a comparison.
Kiyosaki talks about how, as a kid, having these two strong, charismatic dads giving him conflicting advice was confusing. It created tension. But crucially, it gave him this unique opportunity to constantly compare and contrast these two opposing views on money and life.
So instead of just inheriting one set of beliefs,
He had to actively think, analyze, compare, and then choose for himself. And the book really brings this contrast to life through their different sayings and core beliefs. Like, poor Dad would often say, the love of money is the root of all evil.
heard that one before, common sentiment.
Right. But Rich Dad's take was pragmatically different. The lack of money is the root of all evil. It's a subtle shift, but it reveals a fundamental difference in how they saw money's role.
Interesting. What about when things got tough financially?
Another key difference. Poor Dad's default phrase was, I can't afford it, which Kiyosaki points out is like a mental stop sign. It shuts down your brain, stops creating problem solving.
Yeah, conversation ender.
Exactly. Rich Dad, though, absolutely forbade those words. He insisted they ask, how can I afford it? See the difference? One accepts limits. The other forces your brain to engage, find solutions, exercise that mental muscle.
Puts the brain to work. I like that.
And their focus was different too. Poor Dad was all about job security, pay raises, retirement plans, benefits, what the book kind of calls an entitlement mentality. He taught Robert how to write a great resume to get a good job.
Standard career advice.
Rich Dad, totally different world. Believed in complete financial self-reliance. Focused on creating investments, building businesses. He taught Robert how to write compelling business plans, not resumes.
Creating jobs versus getting a job.
Precisely. And their mindset was so ingrained, poor Dad basically predicted his own reality, saying, I'll never be rich. And he wasn't. Rich Dad, even when he was temporarily broke after some setback, always refer to himself as rich. He'd say there's a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary, poor is eternal.
That's powerful. Mindset is everything.
And Kiyosaki argues this fundamental difference in perspective, largely learned at home, not in school, is what really set them and his financial philosophy apart.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the book's core argument, doesn't it? That our upbringing, our early exposure to ideas about money just profoundly shapes our entire financial lives. The idea that money is taught primarily at home, not in school. That explains, according to the book, why you see these incredibly smart professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants who aced school, still struggling financially. They might be brilliant academically, but they're operating with a poor dad money mindset, maybe focused on job security rather than wealth creation.
Because schools focus on job skills, not money skills.
Exactly. Schools teach scholastic and professional skills, get you ready for a job, but they critically neglect practical financial skills, how money actually works. Kiyosaki shares that great story from when he was a kid, right? To illustrate this. He and his friend Mike, after being called poor kids, decided they needed to make money.
Yeah, the counterfeiting story.
Right. Their first attempt was literally trying to make nickels out of melted lead toothpaste tubes. Hilarious and probably slightly dangerous.
Definitely wouldn't recommend trying that at home.
No, absolutely not. But the point is, his poor dad, despite the obvious illegality, didn't just shut it down. He actually framed it as showing creativity, initiative. He told them, keep going, don't quit.
Which is interesting advice in that context.
It is, but it highlights that spark of entrepreneurship, that resilience that Rich Dad would later see and really cultivate. It was a crucial turning point.
So that led them to Rich Dad.
Yeah, they went to Mike's dad, the Rich Dad, for advice on how to really make money. And Rich Dad didn't just give them the secrets. Nope. He offered them a job.
What kind of job?
Working at his little convenience store, his superette, for a whopping 10 cents an hour, 3 hours every Saturday. This was back in 1956, mind you.
10 cents an hour. Wow.
Yeah. And the job, dusting cans. Meticulously dusting every single can on the shelves because the doors were always open and dust blew in constantly. Robert said it was excruciatingly boring. After 4 weeks, he was ready to quit, feeling totally exploited like a wage slave.
I can imagine.
But Kiyosaki realized later this was a deliberate lesson from Rich Dad. It was harsh, yes, but it was designed to make them feel what it was like to work for money, to taste the grind of the rat race firsthand. The goal wasn't the 10 cents. It was to ignite this deep, burning desire for something different.
To make them want to find another way.
Exactly. To use their minds to create value, not just trade their time for a tiny wage. To see the system from the inside, understand its limitations, and then consciously choose to find a way out.
It's a powerful teaching method, albeit a tough one.
It really is. So again, for you listening, think about your own first experiences with money. What lessons did you pick up, maybe without even realizing it? From parents, that first job. How might those early imprints still be shaping your financial habits, your beliefs about work, your comfort with risk, even today?
Because the book argues those early lessons can be like invisible chains holding us back financially. Definitely food for thought. 3. The rat race unpacked. Understanding cash flow and the asset equation. Okay, let's get into this concept that the book made famous, maybe infamous, the rat race. It's such a vivid term, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Describes that cycle that just traps so many smart, educated, hardworking people.
It really resonates. It's that feeling of running on a treadmill, right? You're working harder, maybe getting raises, but you never seem to actually get ahead financially.
Exactly. The book paints this incredibly detailed picture, almost universal, of the average person's life path. You're born, go to school, get the good grades, college, maybe grad school.
Check.
Then you do exactly what you were programmed to do. Find a safe, secure job or a career. Doctor, lawyer, corporate exec, government worker, whatever.
The responsible path.
Right. Then the money starts coming in.
Right.
And what happens next? Credit card offers flood the mailbox.
Oh, yeah. Temptation arrives.
And the shopping begins. Life feels pretty good, especially if you've got 2 incomes. You feel successful. You're achieving the dream. Buy the house, the new car, the latest gadgets, take vacations, eventually have kids.
The whole 9 yards.
But then the kids arrive, and suddenly the demand for cash is enormous. So the couple decides, okay, our careers are vital now. They start working even harder, chasing promotions, raises.
Got to feed the machine.
And as the raises come, maybe another kid arrives, or you need a bigger house, nicer cars, fancier holidays. So you work even harder, maybe go back to school for more skills to earn more, maybe even take a second job just to keep up.
The hamster wheel speeds up.
The income goes up, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but so does everything else. Your tax bracket, property taxes on the bigger house, Social Security taxes, all the hidden taxes, plus just higher living costs. You get that bigger paycheck, look at it and wonder, where did it all go?
The perpetual question.
You might put a little into mutual funds, but the fundamental cycle work, spend, pay bills, repeat, just keeps going. And the book argues this whole cycle is driven by two primal emotions, fear and greed.
Fear and greed. Explain that.
Fear of not having enough money, fear of losing your job, not being able to pay the mortgage, the bills, and greed. Well, not necessarily evil greed, but the desire for more, for the nicer things money can buy, which become like temporary fixes for that underlying fear.
The cycle feeds itself. Fear drives you to work for money. Greed makes you spend it on things that often create more expenses.
Precisely. And the book's central metaphor for understanding this, and more importantly, escaping it, is Kiyosaki's cash a flow game.
Right, the board game. I've played that. It's actually quite insightful.
It is. The goal of the game and the goal in life, according to Kiyosaki, is to get out of the rat race, that inner track on the board, representing the typical 9-to-5 grind, and onto the fast track. That's where the rich supposedly play, where money works for them.
It's a brilliant teaching tool because it makes abstract financial concepts visual and experiential. You really feel the rat race in the game.
You do. And the absolute key to winning the game and escaping the rat race in real life boils down to one deceptively simple lesson from Rich Dad.
Which is?
Understanding the fundamental difference between an asset and a liability. This is it. This is rule number 1. Kiyosaki says, you must know the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets.
Simple words, but profound implications.
He famously states, rich people acquire assets. The poor and middle class acquire liabilities, but they think they are assets.
Ooh, that's the kinger. Thinking liabilities are assets. That's where the confusion lies for so many people.
Exactly. It sounds almost ridiculously simple, right? Asset versus liability. But the book argues that highly intelligent adults often struggle with this. Not because they aren't smart, but maybe they overcomplicate it. Perhaps there's a bit of pride involved, too embarrassed to admit they don't fully grasp something seemingly basic.
And traditional education doesn't help. It teaches reading, writing, arithmetic literacy, but not financial literacy. So people are left ill-equipped.
Totally. Rich Dad's definitions, though, are crystal clear. No ambiguity. Assets put money in your pocket.
Okay. Income generating.
Liabilities take money out of your pocket.
Expense generating. Got it. It's all about cash flow.
It is all about the direction of cash flow.
Yeah.
And the book uses these simple diagrams to show it because, as Kiyosaki says, it's the cash flow that tells the story of your financial life.
Let's walk through those. How does it look for different groups?
Okay, so for the poor person, or maybe a young person, just starting out, the cash flow is simple but precarious. A job gives income, and that income goes straight out to expenses. Taxes, food, rent, basic needs, no real assets, no real liabilities, hand to mouth.
Makes sense. Survival mode.
Then the middle class. Their cash flow looks more complex, and this is where the trap really is. A job provides income, which pays for a much wider range of expenses. Taxes, food, mortgage, car payments, credit cards, fun stuff, transportation. But crucially, they acquire big liabilities. The mortgage, car loans, student loans, credit card debt.
Okay, standard middle class picture, but what's the trap?
The trap is that their biggest asset, their house, is often for most of their lives actually their biggest liability.
Whoa, hold on. The house is a liability that goes against everything we're taught.
I know. It's controversial, but follow the cash flow. Does your house, day to day, put money in your pocket? Or does it consistently take money out through mortgage payments, property taxes that always seem to go up, insurance, repairs, maintenance?
When you put it like that, mostly out. Definitely out.
Right. So from a pure cash flow perspective, it's draining resources, not generating them. This keeps the middle class stuck, needing to work harder and harder just to maintain these liabilities they think are assets.
Okay, I see the logic.
Right.
So what does the wealthy person's cash flow look like?
Completely different focus. Their primary goal is acquiring assets, real assets that put money in their pocket. Things like income-generating stocks, dividends, bonds, interest, notes they hold, interest, income-producing real estate, rent, intellectual property, royalties.
Things that generate income passively.
Exactly. That income flows into their income column. And their liabilities. They're kept low, managed strategically, or often paid off entirely by the income their assets generate. It creates this virtuous cycle. Assets generate income, which buys more assets, which generate more income. Money starts working for them.
Freeing them from needing to constantly work for money. That's the escape hatch from the rat race.
That's the goal. And this core distinction explains so much, like why lottery winners or athletes who suddenly get millions often end up broke again.
Right. It's not how much you make, it's how you manage the cash flow.
If your ingrained pattern is income comes in, income goes out on expenses and liabilities, then getting more income just means bigger expenses and bigger liabilities. The underlying pattern doesn't change without financial literacy. They just trade a small rat race for a bigger, faster one.
And the house is the perfect symbol of this middle-class trap. Working for decades to pay off something that constantly costs you money and ties up capital that could have been invested elsewhere.
It's a huge mental shift Kiyosaki asks readers to make. So the critical question for you, the listener, right now is, what do you personally consider your assets? Take a hard look. Are they genuinely putting money in your pocket month after month, or are they consistently taking it out?
That self-assessment, that honest look at your own cash flow can be incredibly powerful. It might be the single most important takeaway from the whole book. 4, minding your own business and the power of the corporation.
Okay, so once you've really got that distinction down, asset versus liability, understanding cash flow, the next logical step, according to Kiyosaki, is something he calls minding your own business.
Right. And this doesn't necessarily mean quitting your day job immediately. That's a common misconception.
No, exactly. It's more about a fundamental shift in focus. It's about consciously, deliberately building your own asset column, creating a financial entity that works for you, separate from your job where you work for someone else.
The core idea being that most financial struggle comes from spending your whole life working for others, the company owner, the government via taxes, the bank via interest, and having little to show for it in your asset column at the end of the day.
Right. You're building their assets, not your own. And he uses that famous Ray Kroc, McDonald's founder, anecdote to illustrate this brilliantly.
Oh yeah, the hamburger versus real estate story. I love that one.
Me too. Kroc's addressing an MBA class. Ask him what business he's in. They all laugh. Hamburgers, obviously.
Of course.
But Kroc says, nope, my business is real estate. He had understood that while selling hamburger franchises was the mechanism, his real business, the long-term wealth builder, was owning the valuable land underneath those franchises. The location, the real estate, was the true asset.
So the franchise owner was essentially paying Kroc's company for that prime real estate, piece by piece, over time. Genius.
Total genius. And it turned McDonald's into one of the biggest real estate owners in the world. This story perfectly highlights the difference between your profession, what you do for active income, your job, and your business. What you own in your asset column that generates passive income.
The rich focus on the asset column. The rest focus mainly on the income statement, chasing raises and promotions.
Exactly. Chasing raises, better jobs, even second jobs. It seems sensible, right? More income. But Kiyosaki argues it keeps your focus firmly on the income side, often leading to higher taxes and more spending, rather than strategically building the asset side, which is the key to escaping the rat race.
So what kind of assets should people be focusing on building in their own business?
Good question. According to the book, true assets for financial freedom include things like businesses that don't require your active presence, ones that are managed by others or run by systems.
So not just buying yourself another job.
Yeah, right. Also, income-generating stocks, bonds, mutual funds focused on cash flow, not just hoping for appreciation. Income-generating real estate rental properties, commercial buildings, notes, which are basically IOUs where you're the lender earning interest, and royalties from intellectual property books, music, patents, that kind of thing.
Basically anything that has value, produces income, appreciates, and has a ready market.
You got it. And a key discipline here is about luxuries. Rich Dad's rule. Buy luxuries last.
Ah, delayed gratification.
Big time. Instead of financing that fancy car or bigger house with debt or your salary, you build assets first, and then use the income generated from those assets to pay for the luxuries.
So the assets buy the luxuries, not your labor.
Exactly. Kiyosaki tells the story of his wife wanting a Mercedes. Instead of just buying it, she invested in apartment houses until the cash flow from the rentals was enough to cover the car payments. Took 4 years, apparently.
Wow, that takes discipline.
It does. But the car then became a true reward, a symbol of her financial intelligence, not another liability dragging her down. It breaks that keeping up with the Joneses cycle, which fuels so much debt.
That makes a lot of sense. Build the engine assets before you buy the fancy paint job. Luxuries.
Perfect analogy.
Now, tied into this idea of minding your own business is another major concept in the book. The power of corporations. This seems like one of the big secrets of the rich.
It really is presented that way. It's not just about setting up an LLC or an S-Corp. It's about understanding that corporations operate under a completely different set of rules, especially regarding money management and, crucially, taxes.
Right. The book gives that interesting historical context, how taxes were originally temporary things for wars.
Yeah, in England and America.
Mm.
And the income tax, initially sold as a way to punish the rich, that whole Robin Hood idea.
Actually ended up hitting the poor and middle class the hardest over time as government appetite for money grew and the tax became permanent, ensnaring almost everyone.
While the rich, Kiyosaki argues, understood how to use corporations to shield themselves. Even back in the days of sailing ships, they used corporations to limit risk. If the ship sank, the investors only lost their initial investment in that specific corporate entity, not their personal fortunes.
They understood legal structures, they played a different game because they knew the rules often not taught in schools or readily available to the average employee.
And the tax advantages are huge. Think about it. As an individual, you earn money, you get taxed immediately on that income, and then you try to live and spend what's left over.
Earn, tax, spend, the standard way.
But a corporation, it operates in reverse. It earns money, then it spends everything it possibly can on legitimate business expenses first.
Like the board meetings in Hawaii, car payments, health memberships, meals, if structured correctly.
Exactly. And then, only after all those expenses is it taxed on the remaining profit. It's spend tax. A complete reversal and a massive legal tax advantage.
That's a game changer right there, reversing the order of taxation.
And beyond taxes, there's protection from lawsuits. In today's world, that's huge. The rich often use corporations and trusts to legally separate their assets from their personal name. They might, as the book says, control everything, but own nothing personally.
Making it much harder for lawsuits to actually get at their wealth.
Meanwhile, the poor and middle class often try to own everything. Personally, house, car, savings in their name, making them incredibly vulnerable if they get sued or face financial hardship.
It's a totally different approach to ownership and control.
The book also mentions specific strategies like Section 1031 exchanges in real estate, allowing investors to defer capital gains taxes basically forever by rolling profits into bigger properties. It just underscores that understanding these legal and tax structures isn't just for big business. It's a core part of financial intelligence for anyone serious about building wealth.
It's about learning and playing by the rules that favor wealth creation and rules that have been around for a long time but aren't widely taught or understood. Overcoming obstacles and practical steps to financial genius.
Okay, so you get the concepts. Assets versus liabilities, mind your own business, maybe even the power of corporations. But Kiyosaki makes a crucial point. Even with the knowledge, people still fail to build wealth. Why? Because of internal obstacles, deeply ingrained personal roadblocks.
Yes, the psychological side of money. Just knowing isn't always enough.
Exactly. The book identifies 5 big ones that hold people back. Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Let's break those down. Fear first, specifically, the fear of losing money.
Yeah, this one's huge. Everyone feels it, even rich people apparently. But the difference is how they handle it. Rich Dad taught that winners aren't afraid of losing, but losers are terrified. Failure inspires winners, it defeats losers.
So it's about reframing failure.
Kind of. He uses the Texas attitude, if you're going to go broke, go big, and remember the Alamo. Turning a massive defeat into a rallying cry. Failure becomes motivation, not a stop sign.
Whereas most people play it super safe to avoid any loss.
Right. They stick to balanced portfolios, which is fine for preserving wealth, maybe, but Kiyosaki argues it's not a winning portfolio if your goal is to get rich, especially starting from scratch. He says you need to be focused, not balanced, like Edison or Gates or Trump were in their early days. If avoiding loss is your absolute top priority, you'll likely never take the risks needed for significant gains.
Makes sense. Gotta risk it to get the biscuit, as they say. What's next? Cynicism.
The Chicken Little syndrome. The sky is always falling. These are the people who constantly doubt, criticize, and find reasons why something won't work. Oh, real estate, too much hassle, tenants wreck things, stocks, the market's going to crash any minute.
They kill opportunities with doubt before they even explore them.
Exactly. Kiyosaki calls it noise.
Yeah.
He shares that story about his friend Richard, who found an amazing deal on a townhome in a down market like $42K when similar ones were $65K. Clear bargain.
Okay, sounds good.
But then his neighbor, who knew nothing about investing, told him it was a bad deal. So Richard backed out. Fast forward a few years, that same unit was worth $95K and renting for $1,000 a month.
Ouch. Doubt cost him dearly.
Immensely. Cynics criticize, winners analyze. That's the takeaway. Doubt is expensive. Third obstacle, laziness. But not just couch potato laziness. Kiyosaki says it often hides behind being busy.
How so?
People keep themselves constantly busy, working long hours, running errands, managing kids' chaotic schedules. Even just watching TV is a way to avoid facing their financial problems or taking the steps needed to improve things. It's a form of active avoidance.
Busyness is an excuse. I can see that. What's the cure?
Surprisingly, Kiyosaki says the cure is a little greed. Wait, greed? Is that bad?
He means healthy desire, not destructive greed. Think WIIFM. What's in it for me? You need that internal desire for something genuinely better, more freedom, more time, less worry to push you past the inertia of just being busy. Without that motivating desire, why bother changing?
Okay, a little positive self-interest is fuel. Got it. Number 4.
Bad habits. And the biggest one, financially speaking, is the habit of paying yourself last.
Explain that.
Most people get paid, immediately pay all their bills, creditors, taxes. And then, if there's anything left over, they might save or invest a tiny bit for themselves. Usually there isn't much left.
Sounds familiar.
Rich Dad taught the opposite, almost radical habit. Pay yourself first. Even when money is tight, put money into your asset column first.
That sounds risky. What if you can't pay your bills?
That's the point. The pressure from creditors, the tax man, the landlord, the credit card company screaming for their money becomes your motivation. It forces you to get creative, find other sources of income, make smarter financial moves, rather than just dipping into savings or working harder at your job.
So the pressure makes you more resourceful.
Exactly. It exercises your financial brain. If you pay yourself last, there's no pressure, no urgency, and you tend to just stay broke. The key is not getting into huge debt before you build assets. Build the assets first, let them generate income, then take on liabilities or buy luxuries.
Reverse the usual order again. Fascinating. And the last obstacle.
Arrogance. Defined beautifully as ego plus ignorance.
Ooh, I like that definition.
It's believing that what I don't know isn't important, or worse, actively hiding your ignorance by pretending you know things you don't. Bluffing your way through.
We've all met people like that.
Right. Especially in money matters. Kiyosaki says true intelligence, though, welcomes new ideas, admits ignorance, and actively seeks knowledge. Arrogant people often stop learning because they think they know it all, or they're afraid to look stupid by asking questions.
And that costs them money in the long run.
Big time. If you're ignorant about finance, the smart move is to humble yourself, find an expert, read a book, take a course, listen more than you talk.
So overcome fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. Easier said than done, but crucial.
Absolutely. And building on that, the book then shifts into actionable strategies. 10 specific steps to awaken that financial genius Kiyosaki believes we all have inside us.
Okay, let's hear them. The positive steps.
Step 1. Need a reason greater than reality. You need a deep emotional why. A mix of strong wants and don't wants.
Like what?
Kiyosaki's don't wants were things like working his whole life for someone else, relying on job security that might disappear, missing family time, having the government take his wealth when he died. His wants were freedom to travel, control over his time, having money work for him. These deep reasons fuel you through the tough times. Your why has to be bigger than the obstacles.
Got it. Makes sense. Step 2.
Choose daily. Every single dollar you receive is a choice. A vote for being rich, poor, or middle class. Your spending habits reveal your choices. Consistently choose to direct money towards assets. It's a daily commitment.
Like exercising a muscle.
Okay.
3.
Invest first in education. Your mind is your greatest asset. Choose learning over passive entertainment. Attend seminars, read books, listen to audio programs like this one. Kiyosaki credits a $385 real estate course with making him millions. Learn from proven experts, even if you disagree initially. Build your financial IQ constantly.
Invest in yourself. Crucial.
Ooh.
4.
4. Choose friends carefully. The power of association. Hang out with people who talk about money and investing positively. Learn from them. Avoid the chicken littles who just spread negativity and doubt. Smart investors often buy when things are unpopular, going against the crowd. You learn that from the right associations.
Your network influences your mindset. Makes sense. 5.
5. Master a formula, then learn a new one. Find a proven strategy for making money, like real estate foreclosures, tax liens, whatever works, and master it. But don't get stuck. The world changes fast. Be ready to learn new formulas quickly. Learning speed is a priceless skill.
Adaptability. Okay. 6.
6. Pay your brokers well. Counterintuitive maybe, but pay good professionals, lawyers, accountants, brokers. Well, if they're truly good, they should make you more money than they cost you through good advice, access to deals, and saving you time and mistakes. Find pros who educate you, or not just sell to you.
Value expertise. Got it. 7.
7. Get assets for free. This sounds impossible, but it's about financial creativity. Look for investments where you can get your initial capital back quickly through cash flow or a quick resale, leaving you owning the asset with little or none of your own money tied up. Like that condo example where rent paid back the investment in 3 years. The asset then becomes a free cash machine.
Thinking outside the box. Cool concept. 8.
8. Assets buy luxuries. We touched on this. Discipline. Fund luxuries with income from assets, not with debt or your salary. It forces focus, builds discipline, and avoids the debt trap. Remember the kid investing $3K to grow it to $6K before buying the car? That's the principle.
Learn it the smart way. Okay. 9.
9. The need for heroes. The power of myth and emulation. Find financial heroes, Buffett, Trump in the book's context, Peter Lynch, and study them. Read their biographies, learn their strategies. Heroes make success seem possible and inspire you to act by providing a model.
Learn from the best. Makes sense.
And 10. 10. Teach and you shall receive. The power of giving. Share your knowledge and, Rich Dad insisted, your money. Give generously. The principle. If you want something, first give it away. Feel short of money, find ways to give money. Want sales, help someone else sell. Kiyosaki believes his own wealth grew partly because he committed to teaching others. Giving creates flow.
Interesting. A principle of abundance. Those are 10 powerful steps.
Yeah.
And the book doesn't stop there, right? It gives even more practical to-dos.
Oh, yeah. It gets very concrete. Things you can literally start doing tomorrow.
Like what? Give us a few highlights.
Okay, first, stop doing what's not working. If your current approach isn't getting results, stop. Take a break, assess, look for something new. Definition of insanity. Right.
Doing the same thing, expecting different results. Yep.
Second, look for new ideas. Go to the bookstore, library, browse online. Find books on unique financial topics like that 16% solution on tax liens he mentions. Then act on what you learn.
Action is key.
Third, find someone who's done what you want to do. Take them to lunch, pick their brain, ask for tips. Get real-world advice from people actually doing it, not just talking about it.
Learn from practitioners.
Fourth, take classes, buy tapes or audio programs, podcasts. Invest in your mind. He emphasizes how crucial seminars were for him, even the expensive ones.
Continuous learning.
Fifth, for real estate especially, make lots of offers. You don't know what deal is possible until you ask. Make low offers. Use escape clauses like subject to partner approval, so it's low risk. Treat it like dating. You got to talk to a lot of people to find the right match.
Volume and persistence.
Sixth, jog, walk, or drive an area regularly. Just 10 minutes a month. Observe changes. For sale signs changing, new construction, businesses opening or closing. Profit often hides in change and opportunities others overlook. Talk to mail carriers, retailers.
Boots on the ground intelligence.
Seventh, understand consumer behavior. Why are consumers poor? They run to retail sales but run away from stock market sales. Crashes. They buy high, sell low. Do the opposite.
Contrarian thinking.
Eighth, look in the right places. Bargains aren't always obvious. He found cheap condos in the bank's foreclosure department, not through regular agents. Nowhere to hunt.
Go where others aren't looking.
Ninth, think bigger. Find someone who wants to buy first, then find someone willing to sell. He tells a story of controlling a large piece of land with an option, selling a small piece to a waiting buyer, and keeping the rest essentially for free. Buy the whole pie, then slice it.
Leverage and strategy.
And finally, learn from history. Big companies started small. People found success late in life. It's never too late. And the overarching theme, action always beats inaction. Just start doing something.
Wow. That's a ton of practical advice packed in there. No excuses for not knowing where to start.
Absolutely. It really boils down to actively cultivating that financial intelligence, that synergy, as the book calls it, of accounting, investing, marketing, and law. When you develop those skills together, making money with money becomes much, much easier than just working hard for money.
It gives you options, choices.
Exactly. Financial intelligence buys you freedom. So the question for you listening is, what's one small step, one to-do from that list you can actually commit to this week? How can you pay yourself first? What new book or course can you explore? Just taking that first action is key. Final provocative thought.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, here's a final thought to chew on. Money itself. It's just an idea. It's not inherently real in the way a house or a car is. It's a concept, a system.
Right. And what ultimately determines how much of that idea ends up in your hands isn't necessarily how hard you work, but what's going on in your head, your financial intelligence, your mindset, your beliefs about money.
The book really lays out two fundamental choices, doesn't it?
Hmm.
You can play it safe, follow the old, potentially outdated scripts, stick with the herd.
Or you can choose to play it smart. Get educated, prepare yourself, understand the rules of the game the rich play, and actively awaken your own financial genius.
Kiyosaki's whole journey, that contrast between his highly educated poor dad struggling financially and his less educated rich dad building wealth, it's a powerful illustration. It hammers home that prosperity isn't just about working harder for money.
It's about learning how to make money work for you. It's a continuous process, learning, adapting, taking calculated risks, taking action, constantly educating yourself. Because, as the book suggests, maybe somewhat controversially, it's not that hard. In fact, it's kind of easy once you get the hang of it.
Kind of easy. That's provocative.
It is. And the big question it leaves hanging is, are you ready to choose that path? Are you ready to finally get the hang of it?
If you're enjoying what you hear, please consider taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, and comment on any of the platforms you're listening from. This really helps support our channel and allows us to get better and bring you even more great content. If today's review sparked your interest and you're ready to dive into a copy of the book, please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase. Not only does it make it easy for you to get your hands on the book, but it also directly supports our channel and the author, allowing us to keep bringing you more great content. Thanks again for being a part of the Daily Review community.